So how do you learn how to turn wood bowls? Hi, I'm Kent and welcome to Turn a Wood Bowl. Today we're going to cover the topic of how you learn to turn wood bowls. Now, it's pretty simple. We all know you basically watch a bunch of YouTube videos of people turning wood bowls. You put a piece of wood on your lathe and then you turn beautiful bowls, right? Well, it's not quite that simple. There's a lot more to it, and unfortunately, very few people talk about this. Actually, I don't know anybody that talks about this, but in this video today, we're going to cover the learning process for turning wood bowls. And it's super important to understand this and really develop a learning mindset for turning wood bowls. Now, what we're not going to be covering in this video is we're not going to cover which lathe to buy or which lathe is best or which tools are best. Instead, we're going to focus on the entire process of learning. Now, I've got other videos for which lathe to purchase and which tools to purchase or maybe not purchase. You might want to check those out as well. But in this video, I'm going to help you understand the learning process that's involved in turning wood bowls. If you're coming to wood turning from a woodworking background, it's important to understand there are very few similarities other than the fact that we're working with wood. Wood turning is so dramatically different because of a variety of factors, but number one, we need to think about, this is a subtractive process. We're taking a chunk of wood and we're subtracting material to get to the finished product. Unlike most other woodworking, which is additive, where you size pieces and put them together to make your final piece. So we have a totally different mindset. The only other woodworking field that's similar is carving, which is a subtractive process as well. The other thing that's really important to understand is that we are going to be using tools that have very few parameters. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if you think about most woodworking tools, if you think of like a table saw has a lot of parameters, fixed elements that really keep us in one tight space for control and safety. So we have the table itself, which keeps your working material flat against that. Then you have a fence, which is going to prevent it from shifting around. Then you have the fact that the blade is fixed in its location. So you pretty much can only do one thing with a table saw, and that is to smoothly move a piece of wood through it and cut it. Well, when we're working on the lathe and we're working with handheld tools, we are literally going to take sharp steel tools and move them into a very fast rotating object. Completely different. We are setting the parameters for control and for safety. So we have to think about that at all times. Now, this is kind of funny. I have a younger brother that's a mechanic, and he's an amazing mechanic. He can pretty much fix anything. And he works for this company that has all this equipment, all sorts of brands and different types of equipment, and he's able to fix all of it. And he gets himself into crazy positions that completely blow my mind as far as what he's doing. But the funny thing is when he sees me turn on the lathe, it freaks him out because he, as a mechanic, is trained to never put anything into a fast rotating object. Well, that's what we're doing all the time on a lathe. So we have to get over the mindset of what we're doing as far as having control and understand that we can be safe at the lathe, but this entire process is going to require us to develop muscle memory skills so we know exactly where to put that tool so that it's within its parameter for control and safety. And that's something that is not going to happen instantly. If you purchase a table saw, you can most likely take it home that day, plug it in, and take a piece of wood and slide it through and make a beautiful cut. Now, when you come to the lathe for the first time, it may be very difficult for you to understand how to make a very smooth cut the very first time. And that's fine. You're going to need to build up your skill sets and your techniques and put those together before you get to that perfect cut. It's important to understand this whole process is a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not even going to happen in the course of a week or two. It's going to take some time. It's going to take persistent practice for you to build up your skill sets and your techniques and put them all together. And quite honestly, there's going to be some failures in there. And those failures are important because you'll learn from them and you'll understand better what not to do in certain situations. So they're just as important as getting everything right. So don't dismiss any part of this process. It's also important to understand that during this journey, there's going to be setbacks. There's going to be times when you get discouraged and you think, why am I doing this? What is the point? Why did I even get this lathe? This is harder than I thought. And I don't want this to be discouraging. I don't want you to think that this is super, super hard. It's going to require you to do some work, yes, but it is absolutely doable and you can do this. You can and you will do this, and I'm going to be your guide along the way. So where's the best place to start learning? Well, I get this question a lot, and the true answer is learn how to sharpen your tools first. That is the most important thing, because if you're coming to the lathe and you're trying to figure out this technique and you don't have sharp tools, you're going to struggle. And you may be struggling simply because your tool's not sharp, and you may be applying the techniques and the skills in the process of turning the bowl properly, but because your tool isn't sharp, it's not working, and you're going to not understand why it's not working. So learning how to sharpen tools is super important. Now, I have a course all about tool sharpening, and really the title should be Tool Sharpening, Tool Shaping, and understanding what all the different tools are for, because that's what we cover in the course. The other thing that I teach in this course that's really valuable, and I get asked all the time, I get asked questions like, where do I purchase a 55-degree bevel swept back bowl gouge? Because that's a gouge that I like to turn with. Which brings up another point we'll mention in just a second, but essentially I'm going to show you in this course how to shape all the tools as well. So you can go buy a generic bowl gouge that has no profile on the end of it at all. And I'm going to share with you how to basically make all of the different bowl gouge profiles that you want. And you can reshape your tool anytime you'd like to any profile you'd like. Now, the other thing that I'm going to share with you in that course is why certain profiles do different things and what they do. So you may want to experiment and try a profile this way, and you may want to try a different profile. The point I wanted to bring up earlier is the fact that there are people out there, unfortunately, that teach you have to do it this way. This is the way to do it. There are no other options. Here's the problem with that. If you're watching videos on YouTube, if you have a mentor around you that you get to visit, if you go to a workshop or a symposium somewhere, you're going to see people using totally different tools and doing techniques that don't make any sense to you if you've only learned one rigid way. Now, I teach particular ways, but I encourage you to figure out what works best for you. And that's the most important thing. If you find a technique or a tool that works best for you, then use it. I don't ever want to put you in a corner where I'm saying this is the only way to do it and you have to do it this way. I'd like not to do that. Now, you can use the techniques that I'm using. If you want to make a 55-degree bevel swept back bowl gouge, that's fine. I think it works well, but I encourage you to experiment. In this course, the tool sharpening course, shows you how to do a whole variety of different tools. Now, if you get the tool sharpening techniques down, it's going to make the whole rest of the process of turning wood bowls super easy. Get the tool sharpening and the shaping out of the way so you understand that first, and then start moving through the other processes. Now, the next thing that I highly recommend doing is learn how to master the bowl gouge. Now, why the bowl gouge, first of all? I know there are a lot of people out there using carbide scrapers, and there's nothing wrong with that. Again, do what works best for you. I have a video all about the carbide scrapers versus traditional tools. You might want to check that out. I encourage people to use the bowl gouge because it cuts and slices ingrain fibers better than any scraper can out there. And I know I'm going to hear some comments. People are going to claim that your carbide scrapers can make the most wonderful smooth surfaces, and in certain situations they can. There's nothing wrong with it. And if that's working for you, like I said, do that. However, if you're using a whole variety of different tree species and you're doing all sorts of different techniques, you're going to have a lot more versatility and you're going to have a lot more creative possibilities if you use a traditional bowl gouge. I know that's from experience. I actually started, my very first bowl was with a carbide scraper, and it turned out pretty good and I was happy with it. But I also know that that carbide scraper would not do well with certain tree species that I have turned and that are somewhat problematic for ingrain tearing out. Those scrapers are just going to tear that ingrain out. So if you learn how to use a bowl gouge, you are going to be in a really good position to do pretty much anything you want with turning. But again, you don't have to go down the bowl gouge route if you don't want to. That all being said, I have a course called Bowl Gouge Mastery. Now, what makes this course so valuable is that we go step by step through every technique and everything that you can do with a bowl gouge, so that by the time you're done with this course, you don't have any questions and you're feeling comfortable knowing how to introduce the tool properly to the wood in pretty much any situation. Building that skill set up is going to be very valuable. And then you can build this skill set up without turning bowls. You can simply practice and use practice wood to master your bowl gouge techniques. By the way, this is something I highly recommend and encourage. When we get started turning bowls, we start thinking, oh my gosh, I want to make so-and-so this beautiful purple heart bowl that is going to look gorgeous sitting on their table, and they were asking for that, and that's what I'm going to make for them. That's going to be my first project. I highly recommend not doing that. Again, this is a journey. I highly recommend starting off, especially when you're learning, to use scrap wood. Find wood that is not so great, that is readily available, it's cheap, and you're not going to have any regrets when you mess it up, because you're going to mess up plenty of these, and there's nothing wrong with that, because that's all part of this process. Remember, we're going to do persistent practice, and that's going to require making things that aren't perfect initially, and we have to kind of let go of that whole perfection notion anyway. The best way to do that is to get scrap material. You can even use 2x6s and glue them together. As a matter of fact, if you use kiln-dried conifer wood, such as the construction 2x6s and 2x8s, things like that, you can glue a couple of those together and you can make a blank out of those. You can turn them. The ingrain on that wood is very difficult to turn without ripping it out. And that's a great way to practice, because if you can do even remotely well with wood like that, the scrap wood, you're going to do great when you get into the nicer pieces of wood after you've developed your skills. So use scrap wood. Don't waste the really good stuff. Don't even bother buying those expensive blanks yet. And just kind of put that off for a little bit and realize that you need to go through these steps on your journey to get to that stage, but you will get there. Just give yourself time and master the bowl gouge first, and then move forward. So you know how to sharpen your tool, you found a shape for your tool that you like, and you've mastered your bowl gouge. So what's next? Well, turning a bowl, obviously. But here's what's important to understand. There are a whole variety of different optional ways along the process of turning a wood bowl. Now, if you watch my videos here, you see the ways that I prefer as far as mounting to the lathe, as far as how I shape the foot, things like that. It's important to understand what each step is along the way of that process and understand it thoroughly, and understand what options you have at different stages along that process. That's why I have the wood bowl turning course that's available. In this course, I have lessons that are step by step, and you can go back to those lessons anytime you need to. So if you're having questions about mounting your blank to the lathe, for instance, well, there are optional ways that I will teach you to mount the blank to the lathe. You may find one way works better for you than the other, and it might not be what you see me do on these videos on a regular basis, and that's, again, perfectly fine. And also in this course, I teach you exactly how to make your own really inexpensive bowl blanks that are practice or waste wood. So again, you don't have to have the mindset of, I've got this really expensive piece of wood and I want to make it perfect, and I have to make this bowl work perfect. We're going to let go of all of those notions, and actually I have you in this course do exercises where you make multiple blanks and you make multiple bowls. And what's cool is you can put them side by side and you can see how you're progressing throughout the course. So it's a really valuable process to learn all of the steps properly when you learn how to turn wood bowls. So what possibly more could I learn about wood bowl turning if I already know how to sharpen my tool, how to use my tool, and all the process and all the steps for turning a wood bowl? What else could I learn? Well, what's really fun is when you have the ability to go out and get a raw piece of timber and bring it into your shop, process it, then put it on your lathe and turn it and have this beautiful bowl. And that's why I've put together the Tree to Bowl Understanding Green Wood course. Now, if you've ever grabbed a log and tried to process it into a piece of wood that you can use for a project, you know all the difficulties that can come about. And mainly, they all revolve around the fact that the wood wants to crack. Well, this course that I have, Tree to Bowl Understanding Green Wood, is going to help you understand all the steps for processing wood properly to make wood bowls. And the central theme of this course is preventing cracking. Yes, I'm going to show you exactly how to prevent cracking. But more importantly, I'm going to show you in this course all of the different things that are happening with the tree that you probably aren't thinking about. I know I wasn't until I started studying this and going down this path along this journey. There's so much happening inside a tree that is absolutely spectacular. And once you learn it and understand it, it makes it so much easier for you to process that wood and get it into a form where you can make beautiful things out of it. And I got to tell you, when you have a tree that has meaning to you, if it's a tree that's been in your yard your whole life and for some reason it has to come down and you can turn something from it, that is absolutely the most wonderful feeling, to be holding a functional piece of the tree that's in your home now and have that connection with it. It's absolutely amazing. So whether somebody's giving you just a couple pieces of wood that they found, or if you have the opportunity to process an entire tree, in this course, Tree to Bowl Understanding Green Wood, I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do all along the way and how you need to store it and properly process it so that you can get the most from it. So it's a really valuable thing to add to your knowledge base for this journey. Remember, this is a journey. It's not going to happen overnight or even after a couple of weeks and that. You're going to develop skills and you're going to have struggles again, remember. And I don't want to be discouraging. I want to encourage you because you're going to go through these steps. It's important to pause every once in a while and look at how much you've progressed and how much you've done as you're going over this process. You need to understand that there's going to be small incremental steps. It's kind of like watching your child grow up when they were little. You didn't see what happened month to month so much because you're with them day to day. But your relatives, when they would come visit once or twice a year, they'd be like, oh my gosh, they've grown so much. And you look at your child and you're like, I don't know. But if you look back at the photos, it's kind of like that. You need to understand that as you go through this, and if you're persistent and you practice, you're going to make those incremental improvements. And it's important to just enjoy the entire process. When I say enjoy the process, that's all of it. The mistakes, the disappointment, but also the triumphs and those successes that you're going to have. You're going to have those beautiful cuts where all of a sudden you take the bull gouge and you just make this sweeping cut and these beautiful curling shavings come off and everything is perfect. You're just going to go, oh, that was amazing. And that's what makes this so much fun. You're a craftsperson and really you're more of an artist. And that makes this whole wood bowl turning so special because not many people do this. I don't know if you realize that. If you've mentioned to anybody that you're turning wood bowls or that you do wood turning, most people say, you do what? I don't understand. And then you have to explain it to them, and even then they kind of glaze over and aren't so sure what you're doing. But that doesn't matter because you know how fun this is and how valuable it is. And the beauty of this is when you go through all these steps and you build up these skill sets and techniques, they're with you forever. You're going to have that muscle memory in your arms and your hands and your brain, and you can start applying it in a creative way that you basically can create anything you want. I put all this together for you guys to learn how to turn wood bowls because I enjoy it so much. I know that most people will too once they go through this whole process, and that's why I put all the courses together. And that's why I do all these videos, and that's why I built my website. And it's important to understand that the courses really spell out every step, lesson by lesson, exactly what you need. Once you purchase a course, you have lifetime access. Yeah, even if you go through all the lessons, you can come back to the course or any individual lesson whenever you'd like. So if you have something that's going on at the lathe, you can't remember what to do, just go back to that lesson and it'll be all explained there. So it's really valuable. It makes the whole learning process simple and much quicker than just trying to learn from a handful of videos that you're watching on YouTube, because you can learn from those, but you're going to learn so much faster with these courses. So wherever you are on your wood bowl turning journey, whether you're just getting started or if you've been doing this for years, I commend you, because you are in a small group of very special people that I highly admire, for one, but you're building a skill set and you're on a journey that's absolutely so satisfying, and I'm so glad you're here. I'm happy and honored to help you through your wood bowl turning journey. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching as always, and until next time, happy turning.